The last time the Senate convened, we had just reclaimed the Capitol from violent criminals who tried to stop Congress from doing our duty. The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people. And they tried to use fear and violence to stop a specific proceeding of the first branch of the federal government, which they did not like. But we pressed on.
As we look at China, there is no doubt that it poses the most significant challenge of any nation state to the United States in terms of our interests, the interests of the American people. There are, as I see it, rising adversarial aspects to the relationship, certainly competitive ones, and still some cooperative ones when it is in our mutual interest. I think as we're thinking about how to deal with China, and I think this is reflected in the work that the committee has done, we have to start by approaching China from a position of strength, not weakness. And the good news is our ability to do that is largely within our control. Position of strength when we are working with, not denigrating, our allies. That's a source of strength for us in dealing with China. A position of strength when we are engaged and leading in international institutions, not pulling back and ceding the terrain to China to write the rules, the norms, and animate those institutions. A position of strength when we stand up for our values, when human rights are being abused in Xinjiang, or when democracy is being trampled in Hong Kong. Our ability to make the investments in ourselves, as you pointed out, that is a source of strength. The investments as necessary in our military to make sure that we can deter any aggression. All of these things are fully within our control. And if we come together and do them, I think we can then deal with the specific challenges that China poses from that position of strength, not a position of weakness.
Secretary Pompeo designated the Chinese Communist Party as having engaged in genocide regarding the Uyghur Muslim population. Do you agree with that designation?
That would be my judgment as well.
You do agree?
Yes.
Yeah, do you believe that the Chinese Communist Party misled the world about the coronavirus?
I do.
What price, if any, should they pay?
When it comes to China's role in the virus, I think we want to. There's as you know, an investigation that is ongoing. We obviously want to see the results of that investigation, but there's some things we already know.
If they don't cooperate, what should we do?
I think that we have to look at very hard, because that cooperation. This is really the point. I think of where we need to go on this. What we do know already with regard to China and the virus is that they did not provide transparency. They did not share information. They did not give access when it mattered most in the early days of this virus. Had they done so, it's possible that the course of the virus would have been different and we could have dealt with it sooner and more effectively. My sense, Senator, going forward is that what we should be focusing on, I know people talk about the punitive, I would be very focused on the preventative, which is to say, what steps will China take going forward?
Like wet markets.
For example, right. Yes, a very good example.
Yeah, I agree with that. When it comes to Taiwan, it's been the policy of the United States to basically, for lack of a better term, to guarantee Taiwanese democracy. What's your view of that?
My view is we have an abiding and longstanding and bipartisan commitment to Taiwan and to the Taiwan Relations Act. We need to make sure that they have the means to deter aggression, to defend themselves. I'd like to see Taiwan even more engaged in the world. It's in many ways a model democracy, a strong economy, and a technological powerhouse. And of course, the way they've dealt with COVID-19 has a lot of lessons to teach us.
But if the Chinese Communist Party decided to use military force against the population in Taiwan, that would create great upheaval throughout the world, and they would pay a heavy price. Is that fair to say?
That would be a grievous mistake on their part.
Hong Kong. Seems to be that they're not really paying much attention to what Congress is doing and what this administration is doing regarding Hong Kong. What can we do to get their attention that we're not doing?
So I wish we had taken some steps earlier. The national security law, the crackdown on media, the crackdown on free speech, on assembly, all of that has, I think, put in tatters the notion of real freedom and autonomy in Hong Kong, which were guarantees in the handover. One of the things, this is not going to fix the problem, but I'd like to see us, for example, be able to take in some of those fleeing Hong Kong and fleeing the repression for standing up for their democratic rights. And I know there's some legislation that looks at doing that. But I think we have to take a hard look about what our position should be on the presence of institutions and companies there. Is it going to remain a hub and a financial center? Does Beijing then get both sides of the benefit? We should take a hard look at that.
Our capabilities must be aligned, strategically prioritized, and integrated to be effective. For instance, we should provide the necessary intelligence to support long-term bipartisan efforts to outcompete China, gaining and sharing insight into China's intentions and capabilities, while also supporting more immediate efforts to counter Beijing's unfair, illegal, aggressive, and coercive actions, as well as its human rights violations whenever we can.
For, I would argue, a number of decades, we had a bipartisan consensus about China that the more they came into the world order, the closer they would move to some level of international norms. I'll be the first to acknowledge I was part of that consensus, and I think I was wrong. This committee, over the years, under both the Obama administration and the Trump administration, has seen China move extraordinarily aggressively. The chairman made reference to their efforts to influence American policymakers. We see them move aggressively militarily. We see them move aggressively economically. I've been particularly concerned about their efforts to dominate new technologies. And we've seen them use tools from stealing intellectual property to treating their own people extraordinarily poorly, whether they be Uyghurs or the people of Hong Kong. So I think it is important that we are clear-eyed about China. I do think it's important as well to recognize that our beef is not with the Chinese people, but with this Chinese Communist Party. So I want to just ask you straight out, Ms. Haynes, is China, under the rule of the Chinese Communist Party, an adversary of the United States?
I couldn't agree more with the priority that you're attaching to China and the need, I think, for the intelligence community to focus on this issue. I think in the context of China, China is adversarial and an adversary on some issues, and in other issues we try to cooperate with them, whether in the context of climate change or other things. And ultimately, the frame that the President-elect has identified for thinking about this is as a global competitor. But I think that doesn't, to your point, in any way mitigate the fact that when it comes to espionage or a variety of areas that I'll be focused on, if I am confirmed in the Director of National Intelligence, they are an adversary and that we have to work on those issues, in particular, countering their illegal, unfair, aggressive actions in these spaces.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. I know that there's a God above, and all I've ever learned from love is how to shoot at someone who outdrew you. It's not a cry you hear at night. It's not someone who's seen the light. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.